The crash had been sudden. One moment, Captain Elias Rourke was guiding his small exploration craft through the strange orbit of an uncharted planet, and the next, alarms were screaming and metal was tearing apart. He had fought to control the descent, but gravity had its way, pulling him down like a stone into the dense atmosphere. When Elias opened his eyes again, he was lying on the cracked earth, surrounded by smoke and the ruined shell of his vessel. The sky above was pale green, and the air was thicker than Earth's, heavy with scents of minerals and plants he did not know. His ribs ached, his left leg stung from a shallow cut, and his oxygen meter blinked a warning. He had only a few days of supply left. Still, he was alive. Elias pushed himself up, leaning on a piece of wreckage for support. He was a human explorer, trained for survival. But this world felt different. The landscape stretched in layers of crystal ridges and silver grass. The wind sang as it moved through tall spires of stone that shimmered faintly as if light lived inside them. For a moment, despite his pain, Elias stood silent, taking in the alien beauty. But survival came first. He grabbed what little gear had survived the crash: a pack of rations, a multi-tool, and a small beacon. He had no guarantee that anyone would find him soon. His ship had fallen off official routes, and this system was not on any star maps he had studied. Hours passed as Elias limped through valleys of glass-like rock. His body was tired, yet his mind stayed sharp, scanning for water or shelter. The terrain grew stranger with every step. Bridges of translucent stone arched across rivers of glowing mist, and trees with golden leaves whispered as if sharing secrets. Elias tried not to think too much about the danger. Strange worlds always carried risks, but humans had a way of surviving where others thought survival was impossible. By the time the second sun of the planet began to set, Elias reached a wide canyon. A glittering crystal bridge stretched across it, fragile and narrow. He tested the surface with his boot. It groaned but held. His oxygen meter warned again, and he knew he had to take the risk. Halfway across, Elias heard voices. They were not human. Soft and melodic, they drifted from the far side of the bridge. He froze, instincts on alert. Shapes appeared. Tall figures dressed in flowing garments of silver and blue, their skin faintly luminous in the twilight. They walked with a grace that spoke of nobility. At the center of the group was a young woman, clearly their focus. She wore a crown-like circlet, her hair shimmering like starlight. Her eyes were bright, scanning the bridge ahead. Elias realized with sudden clarity, she was someone important. The group stepped onto the bridge, and almost at once a sharp crack split the air. The crystal beneath them trembled. A section of the bridge gave way near the princess's feet. She slipped, her balance faltering, her guards too far behind to catch her in time. Elias did not think. His human instincts, sharpened by years of survival, drove him forward. He lunged across the breaking surface, his boots striking shards that sliced at his leg, and caught her wrist just as she fell. For a breathless moment, they hung together over the glowing canyon, her wide eyes locked on his. Her scent reached him then, soft, strange like a blend of metal rain and blooming flowers. But to her, the scent of Elias was unlike anything she had ever known. It was earthy, strong, carrying the memory of burning engines and living soil. It struck her heart with sudden recognition, though she had never met a human before. With a grunt of effort, Elias pulled her up onto solid ground. The bridge groaned again, but they managed to scramble back to safety. The princess stumbled into her guard's arms, but her gaze never left Elias. He stood, breathing hard, holding his side where the shards had cut him. His uniform was torn, his face marked with dust and exhaustion, yet there was a steadiness in his eyes. The guards surrounded her quickly, their language flowing fast, questioning her safety. Some glanced at Elias with suspicion, others with surprise. Yet the princess raised her hand, calming them. She stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. "You saved me." Her words were accented, shaped by a tongue unfamiliar to human ears, but Elias understood enough. He gave a small nod. "I couldn't let you fall." The princess studied him. She had heard stories of humans, distant travelers from the stars, said to be fragile yet endlessly persistent. Now she saw one with her own eyes, standing wounded yet unbroken before her. Her name was Lyra, daughter of the Sereth dynasty, and though she was surrounded by her people, she felt an odd stillness in her heart as she looked at him. Something about the scent, The memory of that instant carved itself deep inside her mind. Before she could speak further, more guards arrived, shouting orders. The air filled with tension. They gestured for Elias to stay back, their hands resting on elegant weapons of light. He did not resist. He had done what needed to be done. Lyra, however, hesitated. She wanted to say more, to ask who he was, why he was here. But duty pressed on her shoulders. Her guards urged her away, reminding her of her safety and her role as heir. As they guided her toward the path beyond the bridge, she glanced back. Elias stood alone on the fractured surface, the mist swirling at his feet. His figure was dark against the glowing canyon. Steady, unmoving, she whispered softly, almost to herself, "I will not forget," and then she was gone, carried away by her people. Elias exhaled, leaning on his pack. He felt the sting of his wounds, but also the quiet satisfaction that he had acted without hesitation. He did not expect thanks. Survival was his only goal now. Still, the image of the luminous princess lingered in his thoughts as he turned back toward the wild unknown. Far above, the twin suns faded into night, and the stars of this strange world glittered like distant fires. Elias walked on, unaware that the bond formed on that fragile bridge would echo through the years to come. Years passed like waves on a distant shore. For Captain Elias Rourke, the memory of the alien princess lingered, though he had long since returned to human space. After weeks of wandering on that strange crystal world, he had finally been rescued by a passing scout vessel. His report of the encounter with the luminous beings of the Sereth dynasty had been filed, discussed, and eventually locked away by officials who considered it inconclusive. But Elias remembered every detail. The shimmering bridge, the guard's suspicious eyes, and above all, the princess, her gaze locked with his as he pulled her back from the edge of death. He had thought of her more than once during lonely nights on long voyages, but he never expected to see her again. The galaxy had other plans. The summit of worlds a decade later, humans had begun entering the galactic stage in earnest. Trade, exploration, and diplomacy stretched across dozens of systems. Still, humans were young compared to the ancient empires of the stars. To many, humanity was curious and reckless, bold to a fault but not yet trusted. So when the Sereth Empire announced a great interstellar summit, the human government eagerly sent delegates. Among them, reluctantly persuaded, was Elias Rourke. He was no longer the daring young explorer. Streaks of silver now touched his hair and faint lines marked his face. Yet his reputation for survival and his calm voice in negotiations made him valuable. The summit hall was like nothing he had ever seen. Built of shining crystal that seemed to float above a lake of light, it held thousands of delegates from dozens of species. Their voices created a constant hum, a chorus of cultures meeting under one roof. Elias entered quietly, his uniform plain, his presence unannounced. He was just one man among many, or so he believed. The princess transformed at the heart of the hall stood Princess Lyra, no longer a sheltered heir but a poised leader. She had grown taller, her movements graceful and measured. The circlet on her brow had become a true crown, and her silver-blue garments marked her rank as the chosen heir of the Sereth dynasty. To all eyes, she was regal and untouchable. To her council, she was the voice of reason. To her people, she was hope, yet in her heart a memory lingered, the memory of a human who had once caught her as she slipped into the abyss. The years had not dulled it. His scent, strange and grounding, remained clear in her mind. She had tried to dismiss it as a childish fancy, but whenever she stood near crystal bridges, she remembered. Whenever she felt the wind in high places, she thought of him, and now, as she prepared to speak before the gathered worlds, she caught that scent again. The moment of recognition. It was faint at first, carried through the crowd, earthy, metallic, and alive. Her words faltered as she stood before the assembly. Her people noticed her pause, confused. Lyra's sharp eyes swept the hall, searching, scanning the endless rows of delegates. Then she saw him. Older, yes, weathered by years of service, but unmistakable. His eyes still carried the same steady light. His presence was quiet, yet to her it was louder than the entire hall. Her heart skipped. Her hand trembled before she steadied it against the podium. She remembered. Lyra froze mid-sentence, her people watching with concern. For the first time in years, her carefully built mask cracked. Across the room, Elias noticed her sudden silence. He frowned slightly, unsure of the cause. His gaze met hers and recognition sparked. He had not expected it, but the sight of her brought the memories rushing back. The bridge, the fall, her luminous face lit by mist. Elias did not move. He did not wave or call out. He only inclined his head slightly, a small gesture of acknowledgement as if to say, yes, it was real. Yes, I remember too. Whispers in the crowd. The silence lasted only a moment, but in a hall filled with diplomats, a moment was enough. Whispers spread like fire. Why had the princess stopped? Who was she looking at? What did this human mean to her? Lyra quickly regained her composure. She finished her speech smoothly, her voice firm, but her thoughts were elsewhere. As the applause echoed, she withdrew with her counsel. Her advisors pressed her. Are you unwell, princess? Your pause was noticed. I am fine, she answered softly, though her gaze lingered on the crowd. It was nothing, but it was not nothing. It was him. A quiet reunion. That evening, as lights shimmered across the summit city, Elias stood alone on a balcony overlooking the glowing waters. He had expected no recognition, no approach. In truth, he thought the princess would have forgotten him entirely, but soft footsteps approached. He turned and saw her standing there, her guards at a respectful distance. For a long moment, they said nothing. The stars reflected in the water, and the silence between them carried 1,000 unspoken words. You, she finally whispered, her voice carrying both wonder and certainty. It is you. Elias inclined his head. It seems you remember. How could I forget? Lyra stepped closer, her eyes searching his. On the bridge. I thought I was lost. And then you were there. You smelled of fire and earth. It stayed with me. I knew I would know it again if ever I found you. Elias gave a quiet smile, though his voice was calm. I'm surprised. It was a long time ago. You were young. I was lucky. Not lucky, she said firmly. You risked your life for mine. Her words were simple, yet they carried weight. Elias felt a warmth in his chest, though he tried to keep his expression neutral. Anyone would have done the same. No, Lyra said. Not anyone. I know my people. I know their caution. You did not hesitate. Two paths intertwined, their conversation stretched into the night. They spoke of the years that had passed, her path to leadership, his life among the stars. They spoke carefully, knowing that spies and watchers lingered even in the shadows. Yet beneath their formal words lay something deeper. A bond formed years ago had not faded. When at last they parted, Lyra placed a hand over her heart. I am glad the galaxy brought you here again, Elias Rourke. Whatever else happens, remember this, you are not forgotten. Elias bowed slightly. Nor are you. The echo that would not fade. The summit continued with debates and treaties, but both the princess and the human carried that quiet meeting within them. Lyra found herself glancing across the hall, seeking him in the crowd. Elias, though reserved, felt her presence like a steady flame. Whispers continued among the delegates. Questions were raised. Why did the princess of the Seraph pause when she saw a human? What history did they share? The answers remained hidden, but the echo of memory was now awake, and neither of them could ignore it. The galaxy would soon test them both, but for now they carried a simple truth. Once, on a fragile bridge between worlds, a human had saved an alien princess, and neither time nor distance could erase that memory. The days after the summit began were filled with speeches, negotiations, and endless formalities. Delegates from across the stars debated trade routes, peace agreements, and cultural exchanges. The hall was a storm of voices, each trying to shape the galaxy in their favor. Princess Lyra moved among them with grace. To all who watched, she was the perfect heir, calm, wise, and diplomatic. But within her heart, a quiet struggle grew. Every time she saw Captain Elias Rourke across the room, her chest tightened. Every time she caught his scent, she was pulled back to that fragile bridge years ago. Duty told her to remain focused, to serve her empire, to put aside personal thoughts. Yet memory whispered otherwise. Suspicion around humans. The summit was not easy for the human delegation. Many alien empires considered humans reckless, too bold for their own good. They spoke of incidents where humans had acted without caution, taking risks others would never dare. To some, this was courage. To others, it was foolishness. During one heated debate, an elder from the Valon species raised his voice. Humans leap without looking. They interfere in worlds they do not understand. Can such a people be trusted with influence among the stars? Elias sat quietly at the table, letting the diplomats respond. He had no desire to argue, but his silence carried weight. Some noticed that when he finally did speak, his words were careful, measured, and free of pride. "We may be young among you," he said, "but youth does not mean blindness. Humanity learns. Humanity remembers." The words settled in the room, and for a moment even the skeptics paused. Lyra, sitting across the hall, watched him. She saw not just a delegate, but the man who had once pulled her from the abyss. Her heart stirred with both pride and uncertainty. The princess seeks the truth later that evening. Lyra asked her closest advisor, Malin, for privacy. She dismissed her guards with a calm wave, then walked alone through the crystal gardens of the Summit Palace. The gardens glowed with soft light, flowers shifting colors as they breathed in the alien air. There she found Elias, standing near a fountain of liquid light. It seemed as though he had been waiting, though his posture remained casual. "Princess," he greeted respectfully. "You knew me," she said softly, her eyes steady on his. "That day when you looked at me in the hall, I saw recognition." "You remembered?" Elias gave a small nod. "I could hardly forget. Some memories are not so easily lost." Her gaze deepened. "Tell me, when you saved me on that bridge, was it only survival that drove you, or something more?" Elias paused. His human nature urged honesty, but his diplomatic training urged caution. At last he answered, "It was instinct. I saw someone in danger and I acted. I would have done the same for anyone." Lyra tilted her head, studying him. His words were humble, but his eyes betrayed something more, something he did not wish to say aloud. She felt a quiet warmth spread through her, even as duty tugged at her mind. "You speak simply," she said, "yet your actions that day carried weight beyond survival. You risked yourself for a stranger of another kind. That is rare even among the wise." Elias did not argue. He only offered a faint smile. Tension between duty and memory. The following days grew heavier. Political tensions rose. Factions within the summit began whispering against humans. Some claimed that humans would bring war if given too much freedom. Others insisted that humans had potential if guided with care. Lyra's counsel pressed her. "Princess," one elder said, "the humans are dangerous. We must keep our distance, show courtesy, but no more." She listened, but inside her heart pushed back. How could she deny the memory of Elias, who had risked his life without hesitation? How could she condemn his people when she had seen their courage with her own eyes? That night, Lyra sat alone in her chamber, the starlight shining through crystal windows. She pressed her hand to her chest, whispering to herself, "Duty binds me, but memory guides me. Which path is true?" A silent conversation. On the third night of the summit, a small gathering was held for select delegates. Music filled the air, soft and strange, created by crystal instruments. Lyra moved through the hall with practiced elegance, but her eyes searched for one face. Elias stood at the edge of the room, silent as always. Their gazes met across the distance, and though they did not speak, something passed between them. A silent conversation, built on memory alone. Lyra's advisor noticed. "Princess," Malin whispered, "you linger on the human too often. It will be seen. It will be questioned." "I know," Lyra answered softly, "but I cannot look away." The test of trust. The next day, a small incident shook the summit. A device malfunctioned near the energy chambers, sparking panic among the guards. Many rushed to secure the area, fearing sabotage. Elias happened to be nearby. Without hesitation, he moved to help stabilize the chamber, using his multi-tool and bare hands to reroute power before the core could overload. Sparks burned his gloves, yet he did not flinch until the danger passed. When it was over, some delegates praised his quick action. Others whispered again, "Reckless, foolish, human." But Lyra saw something else. She saw the same instinct that had once saved her, the same unthinking courage that placed others above himself. That evening, she sought him again in the garden. "You risked yourself once more," she said, her voice quiet. Elias shrugged. It needed to be done. No time for hesitation. Her eyes softened. "Do you see now why I cannot dismiss you? My people call humans reckless, but I see more. I see trust. I see courage, and I remember." Elias looked at her for a long moment, then spoke gently. "And yet you are bound by duty. I know how heavy that chain can be. Lyra lowered her gaze. Yes, duty commands one path, memory another. I fear one day I will have to choose. The bond strengthens. As the summit moved forward, the two met whenever chance allowed. Brief conversations, shared glances, moments stolen from the weight of politics. Neither spoke openly of what grew between them, but both felt it. Lyra carried the burden of her crown, yet Elias's presence lightened it. Elias carried the doubts of his people's place in the galaxy, yet Lyra's recognition gave him strength. The galaxy around them was vast, filled with conflict and caution. But between a human and an alien princess, a quiet bond deepened. Born from a single act on a fragile bridge long ago, closing thoughts as the final days of the summit approached. Whispers of conspiracy began to stir in hidden corners. Shadows moved, unseen but dangerous. Lyra felt it in her heart, and Elias sensed it in the way guards grew tense. But for now, she held on to one truth. In a hall filled with suspicion, there was one human she could trust, and Elias, though cautious, allowed himself a rare hope that memory and duty might not always stand apart. The summit's final days had arrived, and the city of Crystal Towers buzzed with energy. Delegates moved quickly between halls, their words a constant hum of diplomacy. But beneath the surface, unseen currents shifted. Princess Lyra sensed it first. Something was wrong. Conversations ended too quickly when she approached. Eyes followed her, then darted away. The sense of unease tightened in her chest, a silent warning she could not ignore. Elias noticed it too. When he walked among the humans, subtle glances from alien delegates hinted at suspicion. Rumors whispered of plots and sabotage, though no proof had emerged. Yet instinct told him this was not mere imagination. The first signs it began quietly. A minor energy conduit in one of the summit halls malfunctioned. Engineers rushed to fix it, claiming a natural fluctuation, but Lyra felt the unease in the air. Later, a communication channel meant for private council messages was intercepted and altered, creating confusion between delegates. Orders were misread, plans delayed. A few minor accidents occurred, nothing serious, but enough to sow doubt. Lyra met Elias in the garden at night. Soft lights from floating lanterns reflected in the water. Something is happening, she said, her voice low. I can feel it. Small disruptions, accidents. Deliberate or not, I cannot be sure. Elias nodded. I've noticed. My team reports irregularities in the summit systems. Someone is testing boundaries, seeing how far they can push before suspicion rises. Lyra's brow furrowed. We must find out who it is before anyone gets hurt, but how? Every corner of this summit is watched. Elias looked at her steadily. Then we watched together. The hidden faction, through careful observation and a few discreet inquiries, they discovered evidence of a faction within the Sereth Empire itself. Extremists who opposed the inclusion of humans in the Galactic Council. They believed humans would bring chaos, upset traditions, and challenge the established order. These conspirators had begun small acts of disruption, subtle energy surges, false communications, and even bribes to delegates to shift opinions. Their goal was to frame humans as reckless troublemakers, creating tension and possibly sparking conflict. Lyra's heart sank. These were her own people, members of the empire she was destined to lead, and yet their actions threatened to undo the very peace she had worked for years to maintain. She turned to Elias. If they succeed, humans could be blamed for accidents they did not cause. And my empire, my people, might fall into chaos. Elias's jaw tightened. Then we must stop them, not with force but with proof. The test of courage gathering evidence was dangerous. Any misstep could reveal their intentions and put both the princess and Elias at risk. They worked in secret, slipping through corridors of crystal, observing patterns in energy surges and recording suspicious behavior without attracting attention. One night, they traced a series of irregular signals to a restricted access chamber near the summit's central energy core. The door was guarded, but Elias and Lyra moved quietly, relying on their wits rather than confrontation. Inside, they found devices set to redirect energy, small but capable of causing a cascading failure in the summit systems. Printers had been tampered with, and encoded messages suggested a plan to blame humans if anything went wrong. Lyra's eyes widened. This is dangerous. If this is discovered too late. Elias nodded. Then we act carefully. We expose the plot at the right moment. That is the only way to prevent harm to your people and ours. The moment of danger days later, the conspirators made their move. During a critical session of the summit, the energy core sparked unexpectedly. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and panic spread among the delegates. Many rushed to safety. Elias acted immediately, moving toward the failing systems with precision. Lyra followed, her mind sharp and calm despite the chaos. Together they worked to stabilize the core, redirecting power and preventing a dangerous surge. The conspirators watched from the shadows, confident that humans would be blamed. They had not anticipated the princess herself would step forward. Lyra's voice rang clear across the hall, commanding attention. "Stand down," she shouted. "This is not human recklessness. This is deliberate sabotage." Her declaration startled the extremists. Many froze, realizing their plan was failing. Some tried to flee, but Lyra had already sent signals to loyal guards. The conspirators were caught before they could cause serious harm. Proof and resolution, Elias and Lyra gathered the evidence they had collected, the altered communications, the tampered energy systems, and the devices designed for sabotage. In a formal assembly, they presented the proof. Delegates murmured in shock. The Seraph extremists had been revealed, and the humans cleared of any blame. Lyra's authority strengthened, not only as a leader of her empire but also as a fair and just ruler who recognized truth over fear. Elias stood beside her, quiet and composed. To the galaxy, he was a representative of humans. To Lyra, he was the man who had once saved her life, and had now saved the summit from disaster once again. When the crowd's attention shifted away, Lyra touched his arm briefly. "You were right to trust your instincts," she whispered. Elias met her gaze. "And you were right to trust me." A new understanding in the aftermath, alliances shifted. The humans gained respect among the delegates not through force but through courage, intelligence, and honor. The Seraph Empire strengthened, its leadership unified under Lyra's fair and decisive rule. For the first time in years, the princess allowed herself a small smile. She had faced danger before, but this was different. This was the galaxy itself, challenging her to act wisely, to trust, and to honor memory. Elias's presence reminded her that courage could take many forms. It could be the daring rescue on a fragile bridge or the calm decisiveness in a crisis. It could be human, alien, or somewhere in between. Quiet moments after the storm that night, Lyra found Elias again. The summit city glowed under twin moons, reflecting in rivers that wound through the crystal towers. "You have changed everything," she said softly, "not just for the humans, but for my people. You reminded us that courage is not measured by fearlessness alone, but by action when it matters most." Elias smiled faintly. "You could say the same for you. You led with your mind and your heart. You saved more than just the summit." For a long moment, they simply stood together, the chaos of politics and conspiracy falling away into silence. They did not need to speak of what had grown between them, only to acknowledge that the bond forged years ago had carried through every challenge. The promise of tomorrow. Even as peace settled over the summit, both knew it was fragile. Shadows would always exist and challenges would come, but they also knew something stronger: trust, memory, and courage that could withstand even the darkest plots. Lyra turned her gaze to Elias, her eyes reflecting starlight. "Whatever comes next," she said, "I hope we face it together." Elias nodded. "We will. For now we have proven that humans and aliens can stand side by side. And that is a beginning." The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers alike. But in that quiet moment, atop crystal towers beneath twin moons, a human and an alien princess stood united, not just by circumstance, but by memory, courage, and a bond that refused to fade. The summit had ended, but the effects of the events lingered like ripples on water. Delegates returned to their homeworlds, carrying the story of courage, cleverness, and trust that had unfolded in the halls of the Crystal City. For Princess Lyra, the weight of leadership felt lighter than it had in years. She had faced danger, uncovered betrayal, and acted decisively to protect her people. And in the process, she had recognized the worth of humans as allies, not threats. Captain Elias Rourke walked beside her through the gardens that shimmered under the twin moons. He had been offered honors, recognition, and privileges, yet he remained modest. He did not seek glory. He had acted because it was the right thing to do. Acknowledgement and respect. The Seraph delegates had spoken in quiet admiration of Elias's actions. They had seen a human rise to a challenge with courage and intelligence, qualities that transcended species. Even those who had doubted humanity now viewed it with a new respect. Lyra watched him as he spoke to the delegates, careful and clear, demonstrating not arrogance, but humility. She realized that this human, once a stranger on a distant planet, had helped her shape the galaxy's view of his people. "You have changed many minds," she said softly. Elias glanced at her, a faint smile touching his lips. "I hope I have. But it is your guidance that showed the way. You trusted what others might have ignored." Her eyes met his. In that look, 1,000 unspoken words passed between them. Gratitude, respect, and a bond that had survived years and miles of separation. The ceremony of unity, the final ceremony of the summit, brought all delegates together. Lyra stood before the assembly, her presence commanding yet warm. She spoke of peace, of cooperation, and of courage that could cross species boundaries. "Today," she said, her voice echoing across the crystal hall, "we have learned that true strength is measured not by force but by character. We have witnessed courage, trust, and selflessness, and we have seen that these qualities exist in every world." Her gaze shifted to Elias. The assembly followed her eyes. A hush fell. "This human," she continued, "has reminded us that bravery can be quiet, that courage can be simple, and that trust can unite us beyond fear. Let his actions be an example for all." Applause filled the hall. Delegates from dozens of species acknowledged Elias, not as a human delegate, but as a symbol of the potential within humanity. For the first time, humans were not outsiders. They were partners in a shared destiny. A personal conversation. After the ceremony, the crowd dispersed, leaving the princess and the captain alone on a balcony overlooking the city. Crystal towers glowed in the night, and rivers of liquid light flowed like veins across the landscape. "You have left a mark," Lyra said, turning to him, "not just on this summit, but on history itself. Humans will be remembered here." Elias shook his head. "It was a team effort. You could have stopped them yourself, but you chose to act with integrity. You gave me the chance to help." Her eyes softened. "I knew then what I know now. Some bonds are stronger than fear, and some acts cannot be forgotten." For a moment, silence settled over them. The stars above reflected in their eyes, and time itself seemed still. Reflection on courage. Elias looked out at the horizon. "I never expected to return to that world after all these years. I thought the bridge, the rescue, it was just a moment. But you remembered?" "I could not forget," Lyra admitted. "The scent you carried, the courage you showed, it stayed with me. I thought I would see you again only in dreams. Yet here you are in the light of day." He smiled, faint but genuine. "Then I suppose some memories are meant to last no matter how far apart we are." Lyra nodded. "Yes, and some people are meant to remind us of what we can achieve when we act without hesitation." Building a future together. The summit's conclusion meant that many humans would soon visit the Seraph Empire, exploring new worlds and forming alliances. Elias was offered a position as a liaison, bridging the two civilizations. He looked at Lyra, considering the offer. "I could return to Earth, but this feels important. There is work to be done here together." Lyra smiled. "Then stay. Let humanity and my people walk forward side by side, and perhaps together we can shape a galaxy built on trust and understanding, not fear." Elias nodded. "I would like that." A quiet celebration. That night, Lyra and Elias walked through the gardens once more. Lanterns floated like stars above them, and the water of the rivers reflected the light, creating a path of shimmering silver. They spoke of their past, of the bridge where it had all begun, of lessons learned and of the journey ahead. Their conversation was quiet, intimate, and full of shared understanding. "You saved me once," Lyra said, her voice soft. "And now, in a way, I think I have saved you too. From doubt, from misunderstanding. We have both grown," Elias nodded, "and we will continue to grow. Together, if you allow it." Her smile widened, and for the first time in many years she felt completely free. Not just as a princess, but as someone who could trust, who could remember, and who could act with the certainty that courage transcends species. The human mark weeks later. When delegates had returned home and the summit was over, Lyra visited the site of the first crystal bridge, the place where a human had once caught her from falling. Elias stood beside her, silent, looking at the glittering stone under the twin moons. It was quiet now, the world at peace, yet the memory of that day remained vivid. "You changed me," Lyra said. "That day, you reminded me that courage exists even in the smallest acts, and that trust can shape futures." "And you reminded me," Elias replied, "that humans are capable of more than we know, if we act with purpose and heart." They stood together, two beings from different worlds, united not by power or politics, but by a shared understanding of courage, memory, and the value of life. The galaxy beyond them stretched infinite and wide, full of challenges yet to come. But in that moment they knew something lasting had been created. A human had left a mark, not just on a princess or on an empire, but on the very spirit of the galaxy. And that mark would shine long into the future, guiding others toward courage, trust, and hope. Closing scene. As the twin moons reflected on the rivers and crystal towers, Lyra and Elias walked side by side into the soft glow of the gardens. They did not speak of titles or duty. They did not speak of politics or plans. They only walked, sharing the quiet joy of a bond that had begun on a fragile bridge and had survived years of separation, danger, and doubt. The galaxy waited, vast and full of wonders, but together they were ready. Together, they would face whatever came next, carrying with them the knowledge that even a single act of courage could echo across worlds. And in that echo, humanity would always have its mark.